Well, let's bring in Andrew McKellar, Chief Executive of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, who joins me live from Canberra. Andrew McKellar, thanks for your time. I'm just going to play you what the Workplace Relations Minister Tony Burke called you a short time ago.
The government conversation's about closing loopholes, and the business conversation today's been, plain loopy.
All right, he says you're loopy over these same job, same pay ads. What do you make of that?
Well, respectfully, I'd have to disagree. I think here business is making a serious point. We are looking for certainty about how a number of the government's planned changes in industrial relations will apply. And at the moment, there is no certainty. And I wasn't reassured by what I heard from the Minister. I think there's a great deal of scope there yet to be clarified. We are concerned that the scope of the planned changes around so-called same job, same pay will spread widely, not just into labour hire, but into contracting and other forms of labour supply. Of course, there are other issues on the government's agenda that will affect casual employment, that will affect potentially independent contractors, tradies, owner-drivers, a whole raft of areas, and across a range of industries. So these are serious matters. They go to fairness and they go to the incentive for business to create employment opportunities. So they're far-reaching impacts, and I think we need a serious dialogue with government about exactly what it is proposing and how that will impact the Australian economy.
Well, to that, he wouldn't even nominate how many workers this might affect. Do you have any estimates on that?
Well, again, it really depends. So if you look at the total changes, so if it's just the same job, same pay issue, then in terms of various forms of labour hire, contracting, labour supply, that's 2.5% of the total workforce. So it's not huge in the overall scheme of things, but there are some very important areas of focus there. The so-called gig economy, which is another area the government is focusing on, I think that's probably less than 1%. Casual employment is 22, 23%, so that is important. Look, all of these things are important at the margin. They do have an impact on the decision to employ, and we shouldn't take that for granted. We've got a very low unemployment rate at the moment, but things are getting tough, and we want to keep Australia at a position where it's at or near full employment for as long as possible. All
right, what's your worst case scenario in terms of this reform for business and small business?
Well, look, I think the concern is that this can add significantly to costs and uncertainty about the decisions to employ. We saw last week an important decision by the Fair Work Commission raising the minimum wage by more than inflation. We expected that will add between $12 and $14 billion of cost in the economy. If you add on to that the measures that the government is planning here, they haven't been able to clarify the precise scope, how many employees will be affected, and the potential costs. So I think it's anybody's guess as to how far-reaching that will be. That's why we're asking the questions now, and we need to get some answers. We need to get some serious discussion with government on these points.
One of the difficulties you've got is it's a pretty hard argument to mount to Australians, isn't it, that they shouldn't get pay rises? So what is that argument that you can mount?
No, look, I do think people should get pay rises. Business is not against that. We supported, I think, a fair and reasonable pay rise in the national wage case last week. The decision has gone a lot further than that. The jury is out. We will see what the impact of that is in the fullness of time. And, the discussions about, does it feed back into inflation? Will it result in higher interest rates? We hope that that's not the case. But, there are a lot of pressures on business and particularly small business at the moment. Those things can't be ignored. We need to have a discussion about that. We need to understand what those impacts are. And I think it's right for business to be raising those issues at this point in time.
All right, finally, we've got multi-employer bargaining. That legislation comes into effect tomorrow. What are you expecting to occur from here in relation to that?
Well, I think let's see over the course of time. The Minister was pointing to the fact that he expected that the initial moves will be in a number of areas in the care sector. So let's see if that happens. Let's see if there is a push, and I think if there is, it'll mainly come from the unions to try and expand that out into other sectors of the economy. If that occurs, then the risk is we're moving away from enterprise-based solutions that will drive productivity and will deliver higher real wages for more Australian workers. Now, I don't think that'd be a good result if that's what we see. It'll be some time before we know whether that is the outcome or not.
Andrew McKellar, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.